What are some ways to improve the education system? In perfect world, reducing class sizes and being able to focus more on how the student learns rather than trying to teach every student the same exact method. In the States, there's more focus on letter grades than actually learning something. Parental involvement is the #1 factor in a child's successful education. My mom is a teacher. From talking to her, it seems like students whose parents don't care about education usually don't care either, so they are almost impossible to teach. Study how they do it in Finland and start adopting some of the things they do. It turns out less is more. School starts at 7 years old. There is virtually no homework. The classroom is the learning environment. After school, children are expected to play. There are no standardized tests. Curriculum is up to the school. Teachers are required to have a master's degree and are given a lot of autonomy. There is a lot of individual attention on individual students. In Japan, I am from the US, but I am learning Japanese language and culture. Students go to school from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., have an hour break, then go to a technically optional, but if you don't go your entire family is shunned by the culture, cram school until 11 p.m. or so, then they have to do their homework for the day until about 1 a.m. They do this 6 days a week. Stop grouping kids by age. They are differentiated by both academic development and psychological emotional development, which neither has a whole lot to do with how many days they've been out of the womb. Then, teach to mastery. Understanding a subject at a C level does not provide a foundation on which to build additional learning. That only sets the student up for failure. All students need to achieve success. Students could then be at different levels in different subjects, depending on their individual needs. Definitely should add more real-life applicable subjects, but math is important. I don't mean the crap schools tell you like, but every job has math. No. It teaches you actual problem-solving skills which can help you in pretty much every situation in your life. Maybe absolutely forcing everyone to do it hard math shouldn't be enforced, but have different degrees of math, and just have a choice to choose whichever level the person is at. Also, how can you make such claims if you haven't been in 12 years? That's a long-ass time, man. Things change heaps, and education inflation is a real thing, so even the content is drastically altered. I had a few teachers that didn't appear to be interested in teaching. For one teacher, French class wasn't spent watching French movies, Egg Free Willy in French. We would get special projects and science math class would be cancelled for a month, so we could work on these projects which involved limited to no teacher guidance. Overall, there are some amazing teachers, but if someone is not teaching, it needs to be identified and addressed. Get rid of state standardized tests and get teachers off a schedule. There were so many times in high school where my history teacher would say, "I wish we could spend more time on this subject, but we have to cover what will be on the state test, so we have to move on." I understand there being a bunch of units we have to cover, but there should definitely be more flexibility. Teach kids how to learn, not what to learn. These days you don't need to know anything. There is always an answer online for everything. The only things teachers should teach us is how to do essential life tasks and how to survive in the wild should we be alone without internet for a significant amount of time. Put a zero-tolerance system in place for bullying. I mean a real zero-tolerance policy. Nowadays you have schools claiming to have it, but they do not. First report of bullying, tell the child that if it ever happens again they'll be kicked out, end of story. Second report of bullying, out you go kid. Bye-bye. Not putting your right to bully someone over someone else's right to education. My school had a zero-tolerance policy towards bullying, and we were even told about it every month. However, I can remember reporting the same person at least 3 fucking times. All that happened was he was pulled into a room with a teacher and told to stop doing it. Time after time. 3 years later I punched him in the face because he was acting badass in front of his friends, and he told me that if I didn't hit him, he would whack me in the face non-stop. So I hit him, and within seconds the commotion caused a flood of teachers to come to us. I wasn't allowed back into the school for 2 weeks. Allowing students, especially younger ones, to explore subjects that they are interested in and aren't typically taught at that age or covered in classes like astronomy and other scientific subjects of interest, art and art history act. Also, from the age of 12 and up, teach them about finances. Not a 30-minute talk about how a bank account works, but actual useful knowledge about how savings work, the dark side of borrowing money you can't pay back like credit cards and payday loans. The abundant lack of knowledge these kids have when leaving school and getting part-time jobs when they're 15/16 is unreal. Especially those where parents pay for everything and don't take the time to teach their kids the importance of money and humble them out a bit. It'll never happen, but I would suggest to eliminate private schools. If this happens, wealthier people will have to invest in public schools and get more community involvement in the local education system. After this, we'll need to increase the wages of teachers, reduce classroom size, and restructure the curriculum to teach future adults how to learn rather than what. Of course, this is an exaggeration, but you know what I'm getting at. Lastly, we need to make school days shorter so that our youth can start to pursue interests and help them become the person they want to be. High school was the biggest waste of time. You shouldn't have to remember the names of 50 things. You should be able to understand how they work. You should be able to have internet during tests and be able to research without messaging services notes during tests. If I can find it now and prove I know how to look for things what I'm looking for, I'd be able to do it in a work environment rather than committing a shit ton of stuff to memory and immediately forgetting it later. Almost every student has a few classes that don't interest them and aren't particularly in line with their career choice, but many schools make certain subjects mandatory. My school wanted everybody to leave with 9 GCSEs graded AC. This grading system has now changed, and it always annoyed me that, rather than being able to dedicate my school time to the subjects that I was passionate about and planning to pursue, I was forced to spend that time learning information that I would never need and eventually forget. I mean, Boyina Ban summed it up perfectly a while back with "Don't stay in school. Ban all cell phones from school grounds. Kids went through school without them before, they can deal with them afterwards. Increase pay for substitutes, stop teaching toward the test, don't make electives mandatory, meaning you don't need to take an art class for the sake of taking art. If a kid doesn't want to be in school, they don't need to be. They can get a job. Schools shouldn't have to babysit kids. Ultimately, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. A lot of issues I find aren't the teachers, but the kids themselves. Teachers get burnt out because they fight kids who think they know more than the teacher or don't want to be there anymore, so they want to be as disruptive as possible because they are bored.